Women don't often show up on my doorstep. In fact, it's only happened twice. The first time it was my ex asking for her clothes back, and the second, a complete stranger covered in dirt. It wasn't the most pleasant experience at 2 a.m. when I opened my door to the silhouette of a woman whose hair was matted in clumps, forming thick dreadlocks like a cat with overgrown fur. It was initially very dark, and I couldn't see the rest of her properly. Furthermore, I'd been drinking because of my crippling depression that night, so it took me a while to discern whether what I was seeing was actually reality. After getting over my initial confusion, I remembered there was a train station nearby where a group of hobos lived, and they were known to harass passers-by for food and money. It wasn't too unlikely one of them had decided to go door to door in the middle of the night. Sleep-deprived and pissed out of my mind, I couldn't wait to close the door in her face after establishing I had nothing she wanted. "Can I help you?" No reply. She didn't move. "Hello? Hello?" I repeated, getting agitated as she continued to stare at me. Then she shifted her weight from side to side, as if trying to get a glance into my house. "What do you want?" I asked again, closing the door a little. "Look, I don't keep cash in the house, and I don't remember calling a hooker. If you don't get off my property right now, I'm calling the cops." My words didn't seem to register at all, as she kept staring at me. I could just about make out her expression. It looked as if she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. I turned the hallway light on, illuminating her features, and I was shocked by her state. She was very thin, and could barely stand without supporting herself by holding an arm outstretched under the front wall of my house. Her knees looked bruised and swollen, covered with raw pink grazes. There were grazes on her face and arms, too. She was clad in a brown dress, which might have been red once, but was now torn and hardly enough to cover herself against the winter bitter cold. She looked at me desperately, with huge, watery green eyes. Her breathing was fast and shallow, as if in pain. Homeless or not, my instincts told me this person required medical attention, or they would probably die. I wasn't sober enough to make that distance. I wasn't going to take her to a hospital and spend a few $100 for a checkup either. But I could give her some food, water, and a place to stay until I was able to take her somewhere more appropriate. It just felt like it was the right thing to do. She could have been a squatter, a serial killer, a fucking ghost, or infected my house with a shit ton of diseases. But I've made worse decisions when drunk. "Come in," I said. She looked at me but didn't seem to understand. I gestured a few times, then she finally got the message and came inside. She wasn't deaf, responsive to my voice, but no matter how I tried to communicate with her verbally, even trying to say hello in multiple languages, she couldn't understand despite being able to respond to obvious hand signs and gestures. It didn't seem like she was able to speak either, only being capable of making simple animalistic sounds like grunts and whimpers. I demonstrated where my bathroom was and handed her a clean change of clothes. She took them and went into the bathroom, then came out a while later after a shower, my tracks hanging off her slender frame like an anorak. The brown sausage-like dreadlocks dangling from her head had been untangled, and the grime had been washed off her face. I was surprised that, apart from her extremely thin and frail figure, she looked just like a normal person when she was clean. She was also much younger than she initially looked. I guessed in her 20s, whereas she showed up looking at least 35. Perhaps she had some sort of learning disability, but wasn't completely mentally handicapped, and she knew how to do basic things like shower and put clothes on. I showed her to the guest bedroom, and her eyes lit up. Probably the first bed she'd seen in months, if not years. She fell asleep as soon as her head hit the pillow, and the last thing I remember that day was feeling content that I was finally able to make someone happy in a long time. When I woke up the following day, hungover and disoriented, I recalled the events of the preceding day and felt like an idiot. I had no clue why I thought it was a good idea to let a stranger sleep in my house, never mind a mute homeless stranger. However, when I opened the guest room door quietly and saw this girl again, sound asleep in bliss, I immediately remembered why I did it. All my life I'd felt useless and alone, the reason I shut everyone out and binge drank myself to sleep every night. Giving sanctuary to someone on the verge of death felt like an honor for me at the time, no matter the consequences. I made her some soup and woke her up gently. "Hello," I smiled. She blinked and looked around, then sat up. "Hello," she repeated, forming the syllables with difficulty. "Hello. Hello. Hello." She sounded like a toddler saying its first word. I was surprised, as I thought she was completely mute, but it seemed like she was trying to copy me. I laughed. "I'm going to take you to the police station today. There's good people in there. They'll help you." I doubt she understood anything I was saying as she kept staring at me blankly, but at least it was a happy blank now. She drank the soup quickly and got out of bed, still wearing my tracks that were a few sizes too large for her. I drove her over to the station in my Jeep and described what had happened as best as I could remember. They seemed skeptical at first, but fortunately a few officers soon spotted a link. "I remember hearing about a guy calling the cops about a week ago," one of them said to the others. "Blubbering old man, absolutely distraught. Said his disabled adult daughter went missing. He'd taken care of her since she was born for her whole life, 23 years. Said she couldn't learn new words at all because her brain don't hold them, so she can't talk, read, write, or understand anyone. Skinny, short, brown hair, green eyes." "That definitely sounds right," I interjected. He looked at the girl beside me and raised his eyebrows. "Seems to fit the bill. Time to make a call?" "Did he mention the girl's name?" another cop asked. "Think it was, Rosie?" the first cop replied. Her eyes suddenly went wide. She looked around frantically, then grabbed my arm tightly. "Rosie?" I repeated, looking at her. She let go of my arm and almost backed away, probably surprised upon recognizing her name. Now she had that same desperate expression as when I first saw her. One of the cops began dialing. "Don't worry, you'll be home soon," I said. She kept staring at me, wide-eyed. "I'll miss you, but I can't keep you in my house forever," I smiled. Her expression became confused, then sad, as did mine. Perhaps, somehow, she understood we were finally going to part ways. It had been a strange turn of events, and I was glad I could help this poor girl not freeze to death for a night. Who knows how many countless people thought she was some homeless creep, looking for food and shut the door as I was about to. Alas, it was time to say goodbye. The cop got through to the number he was dialing and exchanged a heartwarming conversation with the father, informing him that we had likely found his daughter. "He's on his way," the cop said, hanging up. "Absolutely delighted. Can't wait to see them reunite. Oh, bless him." "Then I'll be on my way too," I said. "Good work, young man. The dad's really grateful you were there for her. He told me to pass on his thanks." "Not at all." I waved at Rosie, but she just stared at me as I walked away, expressionless and wide-eyed. Poor girl, I thought. What a debilitating condition to have. Imagine not being able to express yourself. She's rightfully confused, but she'll be home again soon. I felt warm and accomplished on the drive back home. This could have turned out a lot worse. To be honest, I didn't have high expectations for how this would turn out from the start. I was expecting to get murdered or possessed, not to find inner peace. Just goes to show, not all stories that start like horror stories have to end like horror stories, right? I felt like a hero for those 2 hours on the road, finally needed by another person, and even having saved their life. That's what I thought, until I got home and found something pink in my bath. It looked like a piece of shriveled slime had dried out halfway on its journey through the bath drain hole. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was the remains of a human fetus. They're not picking up. I'm crying because I don't think I'll make it back in time.